pleased to have Heather Spratt join us today. Heather, could you please tell us a little bit about yourself and the organization that you're working with?
Sure. I'm the executive director of the A Dollar a Day Foundation. We are national, but based here in St. John's, Newfoundland and Labrador. And our mission is really simple. We grant to small community-based mental health and addictions charities in every corner of Canada.
So what is it about that approach to donating to these types of organizations across Canada? Surely there's organizations in Newfoundland and Labrador that need this kind of support. What was the impetus behind branching out and reaching out across the entire country?
I think it was just a recognition that mental health and addictions are pervasive all across the country. The stats say 50% of us will have a mental health episode before the age of 40. So if it's not you yourself, it's somebody you know, it's somebody you love, it's somebody you work with. And that is certainly not only here in Newfoundland and Labrador. We wanted it to be a cross Canada mission. And it was always important to us to make sure that we were operating in every province and territory and that it was a national project.
So how do you do that from where you sit on the East Coast? How do you connect with, how do you interact with, and how do you funnel donated dollars to the causes that need it in these other communities across the country?
Yeah, it's really interesting. We do a lot of crowdsourcing of nominations of organizations we should support because part of the reason we're fundraising for them is because they're often so small. They don't have a development department of their own. They don't have somebody full-time fundraising. Often it's something they're scrambling to do off the corner of their desk. And we say, let us do the fundraising and you focus on providing the vital services. So these small organizations can be hard to find, but it's kind of something that we specialize in. So we always have our ear to the ground and crowdsource nominations from our donor community to tell us who we should look at. We also have a national campaign every year called the Changemakers Awards, where people either self-nominate or nominate an organization, and we give out money in every province and territory.
So let me maybe rewind a little bit. A dollar a day. It's an interesting name for an organization. Tell me a little bit about that, where that comes from, and kind of what that means to you as an organization.
Yeah, it's exactly what it sounds like. We have a whole community of individuals who each give a dollar a day, typically $30 a month or $365 a year, and we pool all of those donations together to be able to grant out in sums of like $10 to $25,000 at a time. So your $1 coming out of your pocket, which is, an amount most people wouldn't even notice when pooled together, makes this profound difference. And I have to tell you the story behind it. One of our co-founders, his name is Alan Doyle, and he literally gave a guy on the street $1 every morning when he was walking from his house to his recording studio. And he got to really like this guy, and they chatted every morning, and every morning he gave him $1. And then the band finished recording and went on the road. And Alan kept thinking, I wonder how that guy's doing. I wish I could still chat with him. I wish I could still give him $1 every day. So he started setting aside $1 a day. And at the end of every year, he would donate $365 to a mental health or addictions charity. When his friends found out, they were like, that's brilliant. We should all do this. And Alan, being Alan, said, that would be great. The three of us could do it. And they're like, no, 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 not the three of us. We want to let everybody do this. So they started this national charity, invited everybody to join and give together.
Small things can make a big difference,
Totally.
as you've just
We've given
described.
out over $6 million now, since 2018.
So that's kind of the origin story, which is great. But then, from sort of Alan and then, two friends, does it just grow by I told two friends and so on and so on? And what has been the growth trajectory and how you've been able to reach more Canadians and get them to also join kind of this dollar a day? I don't want to call it a challenge, but how do you inspire Canadians to give $1 a day? How's that been going?
Yeah, I wouldn't call it a challenge. I would call it a community. And I think that's why people sign up and they stay. Originally, a lot of people signed up during the pandemic because Alan was doing some concerts online, and he called them supper time sing-alongs, and he would just pop online for an hour and give people a few songs to cheer them up and build that sense of community and raise money for $1 a day at the same time. And just the benefit that that had for people's mental health during a really tough time, I think was very moving for folks. So that was how a lot of $1 a dayers came to us. And I think another thing that they really like is that 100% of that dollar goes straight to the front lines. We have some really generous corporate foundations and corporations that give to us, and they offset our pretty minor administrative costs. So there's just three of us and three laptops working from home, as you can see. So it's a pretty skinny operation, and it allows us to get money out to a lot of other organizations that are also extraordinarily skinny. So every dollar makes a profound difference with them.
So let's talk a little bit about that. You know, somebody is inspired to join your community and give $1 a day. When it comes time for them now to think about the work that you're facilitating on their behalf, what kind of organizations are you sponsoring across the country, and maybe some of the differences that different types of organizations that are benefiting from that $6 million that you've already given out?
Yeah, well, we are really careful every year to try to reach a diverse, not only like we talked about the regional diversity, but also the diversity of causes and the diversity of populations. We try to reach as many different kinds of people in Canada as this country is made up of. So we make sure we grant to organizations serving seniors, serving newcomers. This year we granted to an organization counseling farmers, LGBTQ plus populations, youth, everybody in between. And then as far as issues goes, when you talk about mental health and addictions, it's everything from, you know, schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, depression and anxiety, eating disorders. It's also grief. It's also, counseling after leaving a situation of intimate partner violence. It's such a broad range of causes. And I think the will to give to these causes is really strong, but sometimes it's a bit overwhelming. And you can think, I want to help, but there's so much out there. There's so many people in need. And what we take pride in providing is being a place where we can pool our resources together and try to help as many different people as we can who are experiencing as many different kinds of challenges as we can.
So you're explaining the types of organizations that you're working with. What do you do in a situation where maybe there's somebody from another part of the country that really wants to support the cause that's local to them, but is relying on you because they're $1 a dayer, to make sure that resources are funneled back into their community? Is that something that you can accommodate?
Well, there are really specific CRA guidelines about directing a donation to a specific organization. If somebody really wanted to donate to a specific local organization, we would send them in that direction. And as long as the money gets to the organization, we're happy. Um, we're more here for the folks who say we'd like to share it around. We'd like to touch different causes. We'd like to help lots of different kinds of people. And that's also we do have our $1 a dayers, but sometimes we'll have folks who say, look, I want to help all these different small organizations, but I just don't have the capacity to find them. Can I give you one lump sum? And, we do have our $1 a dayers, but sometimes we'll have somebody come and say, here's $50,000. Can you share that out to 5 or 10 different organizations? And we can do that for them.
And that the choice of the organizations, it's obviously, as you mentioned before, a little bit of that is crowdsourced from the people in your community who are recommending great causes, but it's also the work that you're doing to build and maintain these connections with people. How do you track, or do you track the impact of the dollars that are donated to make sure that you are making a difference? And then the follow-on question is, how do you then report that impact back to those generous folks that have supported you in a way to support those other causes?
Yeah, we're in a really interesting position because we're both a charity ourselves. who, we have to do fundraising ourselves. So we understand the importance of showing your impact and reporting back to your donors. And then we work with these small organizations and we need them to report to us. So we're able to kind of understand the complexity of those relationships and the power dynamics and the resource limitations. So we're uh, really careful to make sure that our application process is fairly low barrier. We don't want some cash-strapped organization to take, you know, 8 hours away from their service provision to spend applying for our grant. So we make sure it's something they can do in under an hour. And then when it comes back to reporting, we also make that fairly low barrier. We give them a very standard template that is easy to fill out. And then, of course, we do the due diligence on our side by, monitoring their websites and, of course, digging deep into their CRA filings, making sure that their money is being spent wisely and that they're sharing impacts with us. And then we love sharing that with our community we have quarterly newsletters and we have our impact report. We're just about to launch a new website. We know that it's really important not only to show that the money is being invested wisely, but also to celebrate what the money is doing. Because the people aren't saying, they're not saying, I want to see this so you prove it to me. They're saying, I want to see this because I want to know I'm making a difference. So that's the most important guiding star there.
You've mentioned the word community, and I've repeated it a couple of times, but I can't help but think of you as a community foundation where the community is from coast to coast to coast, and the people we're serving are the neighbors that we maybe will never meet. Is that a fair assessment of how you see yourself? I don't want to put you into a corner.
No, absolutely. We don't mind being compared to community foundations. They're doing tremendous work in the communities where they serve. The difference for us is rather than being in one specific community, serving various needs within that community, we serve one specific. Well, it's a very broad umbrella, but we serve mental health and addictions as our community, but it's in a wide geographic space. So it's kind of like the flip side of being a community foundation. We're specialized in one area, but we operate in one giant national community.
I want to pretend I know the answer, but you've kind of maybe hinted at it. You were talking about some of the challenges that Canadians were faced with during the pandemic and some of the work that Alan was doing just to mm, put a little bit of sunshine back into the world. Have you seen through the work that you've been doing since that time a rise or an increase in mental health and addiction challenges, or is that something that's maybe leveled off post COVID?
I'm no expert, but what I've seen anecdotally in working with the organizations that we work with is that the need has not decreased at all. Unfortunately, it seems to have accelerated during the pandemic, and the pandemic seems to have opened something up that is still very much with us. Particularly, I would say for the younger people in our population. Um, there's a lot of will to give, which is great. A lot of people want to help mental health and addictions, but the need continues to grow. I'm constantly saying people don't give up. I know it feels like we're not making a difference. We are to every single one of the people that's touched by these programs. But I'd be lying if I said it wasn't, a pretty big mountain to climb.
I've looked at some of the organization that you guys generously support, and I do notice that they are spread across the country. Do you find many of the groups you're supporting are located in more rural communities? And if so, maybe is there a reason for that?
I was just looking at the list myself as well, because we do take pride and take care to reach as many diverse areas as we can. But there's still an overrepresentation in the major centers. Sometimes a major center might be, uh, you know, I don't know. I'm trying to think of the place that we've granted to in Alberta. Um, but it's not always Calgary. It's not always Edmonton. It might be somewhere in between. But we're really not in the tiniest of places, except perhaps in the north. So we want to work more to get there. But it's a case of they're harder to find, and it's a case of they're often underserved. So there just aren't as many organizations on the ground as are needed. So part of our project is also to promote community-based mental health services. And, just the tragic events in Tumbler Ridge a few weeks ago, they have huge waiting lists for mental health services in a community like Tumbler Ridge. And you might have to go 90 minutes to get a session. And that's after being on a waiting list for 18 months. So this is really, we think, unacceptable. And when we say to people, you're not only changing lives when you give to mental health and addictions, you're literally oftentimes saving lives. Being told that you can have services, but not for, however many weeks or months can really be a death sentence for some folks. So these organizations on the ground that can see people right now and help them get through today are really, really crucial.
I guess that's an interesting aspect that I hadn't really considered, which is sometimes an event like Tumbler Ridge takes place and there needs to be a rapid response so that you can clear up those backlogs. I think when, maybe this is my traditional thinking, mental health and addiction seems to be all around us and it seems to always be there. And I guess it's maybe there's no answer, but how do you invest in the immediate need versus sustaining the work that needs to be done, kind of the sustainable work to just build and protect the health of communities? I don't know how you split that out. Do you get those
Yeah.
urgent appeals?
Yeah. Well, I think it's really, really important to have an in there. It's not one or the other. I always, think of CAMH, for instance, and I support CAMH. I used to volunteer at CAMH, the Center for Addictions and Mental Health in Toronto. Its budget, I think the CAMH Foundation budget is close to $800 million the last time I checked. But this is a place that's doing vital work, and it is helping people in need today if you happen to have access to their services. But it's also doing really important research. It's doing stuff that's going to change lives, and it's going to trickle down eventually, and it's really important to invest in that. But in the meantime, there's somebody, on your street, there's somebody in your family who needs help today. So while this is happening in the big research hospital, which is extraordinarily important, the people who are in need today also need to be helped and served and saved. So it's not like give to one or the other. And not everybody has the luxury of being able to give to both, but just think both are important. Hold both as really important causes.
Maybe this is a bit of a stretch, but do you see yourself as that center or that hub of the community where you're talking to all these different organizations? Do you ever find yourself in a situation where maybe somebody who's operating an addiction center in the far north needs to connect with somebody who's operating a similar center in New Brunswick because there's an interesting lesson to be learned or story to be shared? Do you act as kind of that connector to try and improve the operating health of these charities that you're supporting?
Absolutely. That is something that a lot of these smaller organizations don't normally have access to. They're not often going to the big conventions and conferences and meeting each other. So we like to serve as a bit of a connector and a clearinghouse to put them in touch with each other. One of the important things when we're evaluating a program or an organization is this innovative? Is this replicable? And if so, let's get the word out there so they can replicate it in other places. This is something, when I started here, not quite 3 years ago, it was just me, and then we became two, and now we're three. Like we're getting bigger all the time, and I see us down the road in 5 years, in 10 years, being a real connecting clearinghouse for these kinds of organizations and being able to operationalize that a bit more. Right now, we do it anecdotally. We bring people together to learn how to report together. We've done things like that, but we can do so much more. It's just always a matter of resources and time.
And I suppose that trickles down to the groups that you're supporting. They would like to do more in their community, but it's a matter of resources and time as well. How do you help, or do you help those communities? I mean, you're supporting them generously and they're relying on, to a certain extent, some of your support. How do you help them become more self sufficient and maybe build more meaningful connections with the folks that are supporting them directly?
Yeah, well, we do try to communicate, really celebrate the good work that they're doing and let people know what's going on in their part of the country. There's a wonderful organization in Toronto that we've supported for many years called the Two Spirited People of the First Nations, and they were quite small when we first. They were our Changemaker Award winner, and then they became one of our kind of core causes that we supported every year. And now they've been so successful accessing other funding and continuing their programs that they're too big for us to fund anymore, which, I think is just fantastic. We're sorry to see them go, but so happy that we could help them get to that place. There was a time when they only ran their crisis line for a few hours a day, you know, and now it's 7 days a week. And we helped them get there. All of our donors helped make that happen. And we're very, very proud of that.
So if people are listening to this, how do they become a dollar a day, or how do they get engaged with the work and then learn more about what it is you're doing?
Yeah, well, I talked about our jazzy new website that will be launched soon, but there's still the same old website there, which is the best way to find us, a dollaraday.ca. And there's easy to sign up as a dollar a day or at whatever level anyone can share. But it is a really lovely community to belong to. I'm a dollar a dayer myself, and we all are here. And it's just it's a nice thing to know that for less than a cup of coffee at Tim's, you can pull it together. And at the end of the year, you can say, "Wow, I set aside $365. That's enough to provide like a couple of sessions of group counseling in an addictions recovery center. Just from me. It's incredible. But we don't know what to do with $1 a day. It doesn't seem to make much of a difference, but when we pull it together, it's so satisfying. So I totally encourage folks to sign up as dollar a dayers. It's a gift that keeps on giving.
One of the things that we often see when people start to make conscious decisions about the causes they want to support is they want to get engaged. And maybe somebody can afford to support you with $365 a year. But what are the other ways that they can get involved to promote the work that you're doing and promote better access to mental health care and mental health resources in this country?
Yeah, well, we're always happy for people just to have the conversations. That's a big part of the problem is there's still stigma around these issues. There's still people who are suffering in silence and people who don't feel supported and confident enough to get the help that they need. So just opening those doors to those conversations is really important. We're always happy to hear about those small organizations in Flin Flon, Manitoba, or I don't know where. See, I can't even think of the places, but the small places, Tatamagouche. Let us know what's happening on the ground, who needs a little bit of help, who's doing great stuff but could do more with a little bit of a boost. So let us know who they are. All it takes is a minute to send us that information, and then we'll take it from there. So it's really easy to make a profound difference for those organizations. And we often people are looking to volunteer. You don't really need us to do that. Contact the organizations directly. They're usually happy to have somebody come in and help. Or if not come in and help, just come in and have a tour. Just see what they're doing. Get a sense of what's happening in your community. Every time you do that, it's a moving experience, and I think it makes us all better.
As someone who grew up in Manitoba, I love the shout out to Flin Flon. The website is a dollaraday.ca. Are you active on social media, or any of those things that people can follow you on?
Yeah, I can't rattle off all the handles, but we definitely post regularly and on all the normal channels and are always celebrating. Sometimes we're celebrating our donors, often we're celebrating the organizations we support, and oftentimes we're asking for support because we can only do what we do with the help of the community behind us. And we'd love to do more.
Has there anything else that you'd like to add to kind of give people a sense of the excellent work that you're doing?
Join us. Please join us. Take a look. Join the family. It's a wonderful community. You won't regret it. And the people that you're helping on the other end certainly won't regret your support either.
Well, Heather, thanks for your time this afternoon and for letting everybody know a little bit more about a dollar a day. If people want more information, they can certainly go to the website, a dollaraday.ca. They can find the socials, and they can, if they want to support with a dollar a day or even more, they can do that through the website, I'm sure, correct?
Absolutely.
Well,
Welcome to.
thank you again for your time this afternoon.
Thanks for having us, Craig.
Take care.